Management or ownership of WGCH Radio.
Good evening, everyone. It's Antonia. You're listening to So Now You Know. It's a happy Friday. The weather we're getting there. Spring is coming. It's been very cold. A lot of people still complaining. But I heard that some folks had snow a little bit yesterday, North Connecticut, north of Hartford. So we need to be happy. I'm excited. I'm seeing things blooming. I'm wearing less layers. The sun's out a little longer, so I'm excited about this. I'm very excited about the weather. And again, I'm not going to get too hopeful about it, but I think we're good. I think we've cleared some major hurdles. So I hope everyone. I was laughing this week because as I thought about the topic we were talking about last week, as far as the Mueller investigation and the search warrant that was issued, there was a lot of juicy stuff going on this week. And as you all know, I'm a legal guru. When we talk about search warrants and privilege, and I try to explain to everybody the basics of privileged communications with clients and attorneys. And then I realized, I was probably giving Attorney Cohen more credit than he needed. I mean, I thought he had a lot more. I thought he represented a lot more clients at this time than he actually does. Because as we've been listening, he allegedly only has 3, right? And the big argument that was going on is his telling us who the third client is. So people might say, well, who cares? I mean, it's 3 attorneys. How are you making your money? But it's 3 attorneys that are 3 clients that are pretty wealthy. So again, the twists and turns of privileged communication, and who holds the privilege, who can tell us, who can tell the court that you can't look at my stuff? How can the court say, yes, I can look at your stuff? And there was a lot of talk about whether or not his client's name needed to be divulged, right, in court. So people say, well, why is that significant? And some would say that the privilege would tell you that you can't know who the person is. That's the whole privilege. It's a secret. And then others will say, no, it's the communication that you have with an attorney of the advice that you're getting from them. That is the privilege. So we can hear your name. We can see who you are. So I thought it was just juicy stuff. You guys know I love this stuff. So, again, there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming out of this. And the fact that I do not see the Cohen camp fighting as hard as I thought they would at this point tells me that some good stuff is going to be coming out soon. Some good information, some information that will put this whole investigation maybe into perspective, right? Because a lot of I think we haven't seen anything much of what this investigation is going to, what it's about and what it's going to produce. So the legal eye in me is just fascinated because it's a lot of good law from the way the judges, the law that the judges are using to make these decisions, how the attorneys are arguing these cases. And as I had mentioned last week, these are some very smart attorneys. These are not first-year associates. They're not they're not just coming out of law school arguing these cases. These are some very experienced folks. So it's just a really interesting stuff. So what else was happening this week? I am so excited to report. I hope that you remembered a couple of weeks back we had Professor James Foreman Jr. He was here and he was talking about his book. And he was talking about, what was the title of his book? He was talking about the book that he wrote when he was in D.C. as a public defender. And it was about locking up our own, crime and punishment in a Black America. And he was given the perspective of in D.C. When we saw the change in the laws as far as how crack cocaine and other drug offenses had mandated sentences. And a lot of that legislation was put through by African-American politicians that were in D.C., because the majority of folks in D.C. are of African-American descent. And the whole argument that they were there when these laws were created, that eventually, as we now know years later, significantly affected the African-American community. And we talked a lot about here in Connecticut also, about the different ways that our juveniles here in Connecticut are affected by bias and racism and so forth. So it was a great discussion that we had with him. But guess what? He won the Pulitzer Prize for his book, right? I was very impressed. I can say that now.
Pulitzer Prize has been given out to some interesting people
some
recently.
Some very, very interesting people. But I finally had to look back and see what the prize is about.
Ah.
And I was surprised to learn that, it's not that I always knew it was prestigious. I wasn't quite sure how it was given out and who gave it out. So as, when Kendrick Lamar won it, I was like, okay, let me go check this out.
Yeah.
Great album. There are a couple of songs I'm going to admit, I listen to them now and then. My kids probably listen to them more than I do. There are a couple of songs that I do like. I do get his perspective in his music is probably better than others that I hear in that genre of music. So I was excited that he won in the music category. So I went back and I looked at the Pulitzer Prize, and then I realized it's awarded out of Columbia, right here in New York, right? I don't know who I thought gave this out. I thought it was just this big, famous committee. I don't know, very, very. These people are smart, but I just thought it was very, very. I don't know what the word is. It's not that it's not prestigious, because it is. But I just thought the whole way that it went about awarding it was different. So there are.
I thought it was more international.
That's it.
Yes.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt it was Geneva. It was somewhere in this really pristine, quiet place where people just sat around a table, and you had to be very deep and wise person doing these amazing things, from Mother Teresa to everybody that was just moving the world. And I thought that was it, to be honest. I'll admit it. I had to look it up, and then you realize that there's 21 categories. And you know what tipped me off is when I heard that he won, and people were like, yeah, and his prize was $15,000. I'm like, really? It's like $15,000? I mean, the prestige.
It's not like the what's the other one where you get an awful lot? I don't know, but there is an international one that
the Nobel.
That's what I'm thinking of.
The Nobel.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting. I was like, okay. And so then I had to go back and do the research and say, oh, I get it. Now I understand the perspective. And then you do the research and you see the people who've won in the past that you forgot that they won. And then you see. So it really is impressive. Very, very, very impressive. And I didn't realize that it was 21 categories. And Kendrick Lamar won under the title of music. And I think usually it's going to classical music or jazz normally in that category. But he won it for the album Damn. So I thought that was good, because that's one song I say, okay, that's worth it. And then for the category of general nonfiction prize, that's went to Professor Foreman for his book. I was very excited because he was here. He talked about it. He autographed it when I went to. He spoke at the Stanford Public Library. I think the week after he was here on the show. And it was a packed house. He had everyone. He had young, old, in between, just all kinds of different folks that were in the community listening. And he actually had some really good ideas about prison reform and different things that he was working to do in Connecticut. So I was very excited about myself and excited for him. But I was like, oh, my goodness, look at that. So, yes, you'll have to visit the website to hear about that show. But it was really good stuff, right? And so what else was going on this week that I remembered we had talked about that I wanted to mention? And then there was a lot of stuff that was going on with immigration. We had an attorney, Doug Penn. Hope you guys remembered him a couple of weeks back. He actually came on 2 weeks in a row because there was so much stuff that we talked about with immigration. We did a part 1 and part 2. And as you know, there were a lot of things I thought I knew about immigration, from a legal perspective, and it wasn't so. Right? He had a lot of clarity about how folks immigrate here to the States. It's not so easy. It becomes easy when you're here and you run. I don't mean run, but you overstay your welcome of being here. But the only way that you originally get here is that you're sponsored by somebody. So there's no just getting on a plane, getting off. No, there's somebody who actually sponsored you to come to the States. It was okayed, right? You got your visa, you got your passport, you came, and then you overstayed your welcome here in the States. That puts you in there. So it was a really good conversation that we had through that. But some legislation just came out this week as far as cities being able to share with the federal authorities to prisoners of folks that are in custody that are undocumented, whether they still can do that. And, Doug and I had talked about that there were times where I'd have clients that had pending cases, and whether the probation department shared with immigration or someone called immigration, my clients just disappeared. And I'd be like, where are you? And they're like, oh, yes. The feds just came in and took him. So nowadays, that way of communicating with the federal authorities to let where folks are in custody can no longer happen, right? They put a federal injunction across the country.
Oh, I was going to say, is that just this state or is it?
No,
So,
no. And actually,
state.
yeah, and the whole talk with Jeff Sessions, it was an injunction on him that you cannot do that. Cities can no longer give that type of access. And I think Attorney Penn talked about that how it was just random as far as, we think of a search warrant. Last week we had talked about how you go about getting a search warrant. You really have to give a judge a lot of information as to why it is you are going to invade someone's privacy or you're going to take someone into custody. But they don't have to do that for ISIS. They don't have to do that. You're here illegal. You're here illegally. You're undocumented. Therefore, you are not afforded the same rights as other folks. So they just kind of take you. And that's what we've been seeing, right, in some of these stories across the country of we just had the whole meat packing plant, right? They just show up and go, do you know where Antonia is? Thank you. And off you go. So that was some good stuff when he was there. He gave us a lot of good information. So I thought that was interesting that case had come out. So and
yet we still seem to need a wall.
Right. I tell you, And then there's our president. He always is newsworthy every week. He's always doing something very interesting. Although he has been quiet, somewhat quiet. I think everything that's going on with Syria is frightening. It's kind of scary that the what's going on there and his next steps. But then, as far as all the drama that's going on in his life, he's deflecting and putting things other places. But I don't know. I think it's going to come back to get him. I think the ladies are going to bring him down. I think so. Or his friends. I mean, you can only go so far of saying nothing happened or I didn't know about this. Somewhere down the line. I actually was reading an interesting article. I don't know if it was in the Washington Post or the New York Times about loyalty. And people will say, the president expects a lot of loyalty from his closest friends, where it's Cohen, his family, and so forth. But once you start putting prison years in front of people, it kind of changes.
Yeah.
Right? Your loyalty changes. And a lot of times people would say, how could you represent someone who's, why would someone admit to a crime that they've never done? And I've always had to try to explain to people, if you were ever in that situation where perhaps you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or in many times that we've seen, you are wrongly convicted of something, or you might be charged wrongly, but there is some type of evidence, or you have to take your chances with a jury. But if the prosecutor's looking at you like, you know what, this is like a 25 to 50-year sentence, but I'm willing to give you 5, or I'm willing to give you 10. You've got a family, you've got a life, right? You might be inclined to take a lower sentence just to make sure that you don't end up with a more significant sentence. And that could be just like his friends right now. Like, seriously, I'm going to go do 20 years on this federal charge for either lying or cheating or defraud, whatever it is, just because you're my friend. Like, what are you going to do for me for those 20 years that I'm in?
I mean, what does loyalty mean? Just lying for someone? I mean,
I think you see that in this circle, right?
Yeah.
I think in this circle, you see a lot of people doing his bidding. And even when he was running for president, he always had a reputation of not being the fairest business person, right?
Yeah.
And just as you see with all these folks that he's fired, somewhere in there, that word comes out. He wasn't doing what I wanted to do. There wasn't any loyalty kind of stuff. So we'll see, but it's never a dull moment. It's never a dull moment. I've stopped trying to pay too much attention to it because it's just gets depressing after a little while because there's so many things that we should be thinking about and paying attention to. Did he come out and give condolences for First Lady Barbara Bush?
I haven't heard.
I haven't heard it either. I thought it was just me not paying attention to the news. I know that they were friends. I don't know. She was not a big fan, but it seems to be the protocol presidential thing to do. But I have to look because I'm not sure that he did.
Loyalty to our country now. Loyalty to our country.
Yeah,
I don't. A little bit of the history here. I mean, she's only the second woman that's ever been the mother and the wife of
that's right.
a president.
Yep.
In the history of our country.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. He might not know that. I don't know. Someone might have to tell him that.
Oh dear.
Someone might have to. And I don't even know if it's press secretary. I don't know. I just thought it'll be interesting to see. The other thing is with this whole Starbucks issue. I'm not sure if he said anything about that either. But I guess sometimes the presidents do stay out of...
Yeah, I think I'd appreciate if he didn't get involved in that one.
Yeah, because most likely it wouldn't come off right.
Yeah.
he might do what he did before and just make a lot of the situation worse. And we already have the captain of the police captain in
Starbucks CEO
Philadelphia.
had a good response, I thought. Got out as much in front of it as he could.
Yeah, I'm torn between it because I do think it was handled correctly afterwards. Right? It should have never happened. What happened?
Yeah.
But I do think Starbucks stepped up. Mm-hmm. And handled it appropriately.
Yeah.
I think the police captain, when he came out first, and now he's redacting some of the things that he said, it's like, you know what? You should have known ahead of time. You know what I mean? You should have spoken before. You spoke too soon. You spoke too soon. And I didn't think the whole incident, how it went down, he needed to have spoken so quickly about it, right? Yes. So now he looks a little silly. But I think as far as what Starbucks did, I think the way they did it, I think the money and the energy that they're putting towards it, I don't think it's just they're doing it for show. I think they're sincere.
Why did the policemen need to arrest them? Why are the policemen so powerless that they can't just come in and say, you should leave, and that would be enough? They have to arrest the guys? I don't understand that. And keep them in the jail for what was almost the whole day. Yeah,
and the thing about watching it was we've seen this happen before, right? Where African American men are going into custody. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's horrific in their shooting and so on. This was the most peaceful.
Yes.
At first, I thought, wait a minute, what am I watching? Like, because it was so peaceful, and like you said, it just seemed like they could have said, you know what, let's just step outside. Right? Let's have a conversation about it. It didn't need to be so sudden and boom, boom, boom. So yeah, I'm torn, but I do think Starbucks is doing the right thing. Yeah. And I appreciate what they're doing. And then Philly, but Philly.
I think the term unconscious bias is going to end up being the big word or the big term for the year 2018, because it's beginning to crop up everywhere.
Yeah, and I've been to a couple of trainings, and I've heard about it before, but I think now people really have to pay attention to what it actually means, right? They actually have to think about, well, when you say that, what does it mean? Like normally you just think, oh, I just have a bias, it's a preference of what I like. But when you really look at it and peel back that onion as to what is your bias, going back to who are the people that you normally hang out with, what are you normally doing in your community, right? Those things create your bias. If you're always in one community with the same people and your friends all like the same kind of sports or they drink this, you tend to go towards those folks. So it's necessarily not a bad thing when someone who doesn't look like them and you're in that environment, you're not paying attention.
I guess if you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah, if you're not hurting anybody, you can say, okay, that's a bias I have because this is what I know. But when you have that bias and you're using it in this way and you're an authority, right? She's an authority as a manager to manage this store, and she's using her power to have someone arrested based on what they look like or what she perceives to be a threat to her. That's when it becomes a bad thing, right? That's when your biases really have a racist effect on somebody else, right?
Right.
So I think you're right. I think it's going to be a really good conversation, and I'm hopefully I think they're setting the tone to have that conversation. So that's what I said. I mean, I really appreciate what they're trying to do with that situation. And I just think there's a lot of good protests, things that are going on in the country with our students, with sexual harassment, just a lot of good conversations that's happening. And so far, I think on a good vibe. So far. Sometimes we always have that, some violence will come into it, but I think we are now talking more about different issues and having a dialogue that I think it's a good thing.
Well, we seem to be bringing more people to the conversation.
More people to the table. When
the children, well, I don't like to call them, the young adults from the schools decided, this is serious. The gun issue here is serious. Yeah. It was like, okay, yeah, it is. And now we have all these young adults also involved in discussing
even
it.
If... in Columbine's 20 years today, right?
20 years?
No, 19. Almost 20, but it's 19. But right? When I saw that, I had to keep reading. Like, wow, it's been a long time.
And basically, no change.
No change. And
interestingly, where the change is starting to happen seems to be with the manufacturers of the guns. Yeah. The people that make the bump stock, they're going to stop making it. that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I do think having the conversation eventually will bring some change. But the beauty about the young adults that are getting so involved in this, and when you looked at the march in D.C., is you realize they're young adults that are going to become adults, raise their kids, be part of communities, and they have that consciousness to have that type of conversation, be open-minded. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fantastic. I think over the years we will now see the way that we look at our elections and the way we look at politicians and expectations that we hold our elected leaders to. I think this generation is going to move that needle. I really do. It might take a little time, but I think by the time these kids are our age or, a little younger and having their families, they're going to be rock stars. The tolerance level of certain things that these congressmen and folks have gotten away with, I think it's going to change. And we'll see that, right, with all the mid-year elections.
I'm looking forward to it.
And we've been seeing the upset, so it's definitely happening. So we're going to get ready to take our first break, and then we're going to come back and talk to Miss P. I see that she's here in the studio, so we will be back. You're listening to Antonia on 1490 WGCH.
From the WGCH Weather Center.
Mostly clear skies, relaxing winds for tonight and cold temperatures falling to right around 30. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, highs 50 to 55. And clear skies for tomorrow night, the lows in the mid-30s. Finishing off the weekend on a beautiful note as well. Sunday, sunny and seasonable, the high near 55. More sunshine, upper 50s Monday. Tuesday, mostly sunny, 55 to 60. Some rain by Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Ryan Gallagher on 1490 WGCH.
There is a sound no business owner should ever hear. It could mean you're out of ink, paper, or maybe that old printer is done for good.
I think we lost him.
Go to Staples. Staples has low prices every day on a great selection of ink, paper, and the latest printers. Now at Staples, get 50% off the HP OfficeJet Pro 6900 series. Staples, your total printing solution.
While supplies last. Valid on SKU 225-6781 and 225-6786. Ends 4/21/18.
Welcome to Geico's Motorcycle Meanderings.
Oh man, this is great. I sure saved a lot of money by switching to Geico. I scored some big savings, and now I can use their mobile app 24/7 for all sorts of stuff. Life just makes sense now. What doesn't make sense is if a highway splits, it's a fork in the road, then wouldn't a long straight stretch be a knife in the road? And then wouldn't a cul-de-sac be a spoon in the road? What would a spork be?
Geico Motorcycle. Savings that make sense.
1490 WGCH.
Hi, this is Robin Pastor. Join me Tuesday mornings at 7:20 a.m. here on WGCH for Happy and Healthy at Any Age. We'll talk to guests including doctors, psychiatrists, fitness directors, health and wellness instructors about their suggestions and tips for keeping happy and healthy at any age. Happy and Healthy at Any Age each Tuesday morning at 7:20 a.m. right here on 1490 WGCH.
Good afternoon. Traveling the northbound Connecticut Turnpike. Travel time for the state line to Route 7, 55 minutes. Traveling the Merritt Parkway. Travel time north from the state line to Route 7, a 63-minute ride. Sponsoring a child with compassion is the most effective way to end extreme child poverty. Sponsor a child now at compassion.com/radio. I'm Jay Trelease in the 1490 WGCH Traffic Center.
Everybody, it's Antonia. Welcome back to So Now You Know. And so today we have Palin Anise. And she was on the show before with me, and now she's back here right here in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So how are you?
I'm doing great, Antonia. Thanks
great.
for having me here.
Always. And then, we had Trifina a couple of weeks back, mm-hmm. and so we always reference you guys. We have to get you together in the same space.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Because that would be awesome. Because we were talking about you, and we had done the mindness workshop.
The mindfulness, we'll get into. Yes.
The mindful, mm-hmm. And that was January.
That was in January. The vision boarding workshop, right?
Yeah.
That was in January.
That was okay because it was starting the new year. Mm-hmm. So welcome. And so Palin does yoga, but not only does she do yoga, it's Afro flow yoga. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. And that's how we got to meet each other here in Connecticut. We're part of the same mothers group. And then you had done it as an exercise to do yoga. And I was like so excited. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do yoga. But no, I can't do yoga. And so, of course, I showed up to her class. I sat in the back, like maybe she won't notice me because I'm not that flexible. But it turned out to be a fantastic class because you were up, you were down, you were moving around, and the music was great. So I enjoyed it. I haven't done it as much as I should because I still think I'm the most unflexible person. But even the last time we spoke, and you're such a beautiful soul because you're always like, no, you're okay. It's not that.
Antonia.
And then, you look at her and you're like, yes, you can say that because, yes, she's petite, she's dead. But anyway, so again, welcome.
Thank you.
How have things been going? What you been up to?
Things have been going really great. Really busy this year. Lots of great things happening with Afro Flow Yoga. The class at the Ailey Extension that I teach.
You were actually in the New York Times.
Yes, we were in the New York Times on Easter Sunday, which was really incredible. They came to class I want to say they came in February. So you're never sure what's going to happen, but they loved it, and they wrote a beautiful article. Beautiful article that really kind of hones in exactly on what the class is. We've had a lot of press, and I think that was one of the best articles that we've had.
Yes, the time is always fantastic. Yeah. And so from that, did you increase classes, or until then, you guys had increased classes?
The classes, you sure the attendees or just?
Because you're at Alvin Ailey.
Yes, I'm at Alvin Ailey, but I do a lot of workshops around the city. So and also here in Stamford. So I'll be doing a class at Mill River Park through the summer. Which is free to the public, and that starts on May 23rd.
Oh, so the next session's happening.
Outdoors?
Outdoors.
Yes.
Whoa. Yeah,
Have
outdoors in the park,
this?
and we have live music.
Yes.
With Kevin McCarowitz, who's amazing. He's an amazing drummer, percussionist, and he also plays the standing bass, viola. It's just, and he plays the flute.
Know that. Okay.
He's you know Kevin.
Yes,
he's
but
amazing.
for your class, it's basically drum. So
yes.
Tell us what Afro Flow is.
So
for those that don't know.
Afro Flow Yoga is a class that fuses dances of the African diaspora with slow, soothing yoga sequences and live drumming, essentially. That's kind of the short version of what it is. You have to experience it.
Yes, Bob. So, Mill River in Stamford.
I could do it, too.
Absolutely, you could do it. So, you have to see it. If you ever go to the website for the Mill River Park, you will see pictures of the different activities that they offer to the public. And it ranges from salsa to all kinds of things. Boot camp, just different folks that are out there doing exercise and getting people out there. But her class is full.
Oh.
Like it is a lot of people.
And
it's very diverse.
Very diverse. All different body types.
I'm not going to say this, but she might even just get, the guy that's just hanging out in the park might be sitting there.
Yes.
I mean, she gets everybody involved in it.
Even the kids who ride by on their bikes have to stop and join in.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So you definitely have to check it out. And like you said, it's free.
It's free.
And it's once a week, and they're starting it.
My class starts May 23rd, which is a Wednesday evening, and it's from 7 to 8 every Wednesday through September. Yeah. So
there you go. So everyone has to put that on their list. So let's back up a little bit and talk to us about your background.
Oh, my background. Ooh, let's see. Where do we start? My background. Well, I guess I can just say I'm originally from Michigan. Went to school in Washington, D.C., and ended up in Connecticut by way of New York first for about 4 years. I was a performing artist. I did musical theater, kind of national tours and off-Broadway and such. And yoga was a part of my education in undergrad. So it was yoga and dance were never separate. I studied musical theater. So all three of those disciplines of acting, dance, and music. And so they were never separate from me. So they came together, and it's so interesting. It's fascinating to me to just look at the path because you never know exactly where you're going to end up.
That's because it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Because so the first time that we did the show, and she's skipping over like all these fantastic things. Well, let's skip over. For one, it was at Howard.
Yes.
And she was in a very prestigious dance program. And I want you to talk about the award that you won. That you didn't know that you won, but that you won, but you weren't there because it was a fantastic. Let's share what that was.
Yes, so I'm the recipient of the triple threat, the Debbie Allen and Felicia Rashad scholarship. So they provide a scholarship to one student. You have to do this audition process, and I was the recipient of that award.
Mm-hmm. Were you there when you?
I was not there when they announced it because I didn't believe in myself. I was like, I don't think I got it, but then I ended up getting it.
Yes,
so
of course, right? The diamond in the rough.
That was a pivotal moment for me.
Yes, and it definitely changed things, right?
Yeah.
And so once you left school, because yoga, were you doing yoga then, or were you just doing part of it as dance?
Just part of dance. It was a part of the curriculum and within the fundamentals of dance class. And so I sort of got away from it because I don't think I was really ready for yoga at that time. It wasn't very popular, at least around the crowd that I was in. And I thought it was a little too slow. Just to be honest, I thought it was a little slow moving, and I wanted to dance, So I didn't pick it back up until I moved to New York. So about in 2005 is when I started to regularly practice again.
And so how were you introduced to Afroflow, or was it something that you created?
So Afroflow yoga. So again, so yoga and dance were never separate. And a lot of my dance training was around dance of the African diaspora. So that's dances from Cuba, from Haiti, dances from Brazil, and I was in a Haitian dance class. So I'll just say I did my yoga teacher training. I had been training at Alvin Ailey in the city as well, through the school. And after I did my teacher training, I had been teaching maybe for almost 6 months. And I felt like I needed something more. Like there was something wanted to be birthed. And I didn't know what it was. But I see a connection between these two things that I love. And I prayed about it. Honestly, I prayed about it, and I also prayed for a mentor. And I went to a Haitian dance class at Alvin Ailey, and she was there, the founder of Afroflow Yoga, Leslie Salmon Jones. She's my mentor. And she had already created it. She created Afroflow in 2008, and I met her in 2011. And so from there, I became the first person to train under her to begin teaching it.
Wow. Yeah. Because even when you did we'll get to the mindfulness workshop, there were a lot of people that were interested in Afro yoga, had taken the class, wanted to be certified.
Yes, so we have lots of interest, and we're doing the training program. Yes, I was her guinea pig in a way.
Yeah. You were her guinea pig. And what I love about Alvin Ailey, because even when I was living in Brooklyn, and Emma, my daughter is now 15, but when she was younger, we would come in for them to do ballet.
Okay.
And you'd think, oh, it's Alvin Ailey, it's this prestigious dance theater group, and she's going to be with all of these great, wonderful folks, and you see them all coming in with their pink little leotards. And as they got older, they had to try out and so forth, and then we had left. And then I thought for 1 year I would just drive her from Connecticut in, but then it became too much. But then the kids hit a level where they were just phenomenal.
Yes.
Like you would go to these showcases, and you'd see these kids, and okay, I don't know if she's listening, but she can dance, and she did take to ballet. But in the showcase of kids, it was like, wow. So you really see the discipline of ballet and how it has to start very young into figuring out what type of dance that you like to do. So part of it was, as mom, paying for these classes, you would get a free ticket to go take an Alvin Ailey class.
Yes.
And I think I took belly dancing.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
No?
Nope. And all the instructors are fantastic.
Oh,
They're
yes,
wonderful. They're the best of what they can do. They were very engaging. No.
No, not at all. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I think I have 2 left feet.
Okay.
I can't even do salsa. You would think I can do a little of the salsa?
I think with a couple of classes, Antonia, once you get over it, you got to get over the hump. Maybe. No.
Not at all. I think I have a rhythm, and it's just that rhythm. And then anything else, it's the same. It's the same move that I do in that one too. So I love the fact that in Afro yoga, that's part of it, is just to be free, do what you want.
Just to be free without judgment. Right?
And that's difficult for folks who do, I feel, for yoga, because you do go in there with the intention, like, I want to be able to touch my toes, I want to be able to bend back, I want to be able to do all these pretty poses, but that's not what it's about.
No, it's not about that at all. And I think currently in our culture, that seems to be the picture that's being shown, the platter that's being handed to everyone. Yoga tights and touch your toes, get into some fancy pose, but that's so far from what yoga is. And so it really is a journey of the self. So it's just it's self-inquiry. So you get to discover what those voices are, those patterns that are saying, why can't you touch your toes? It's judgmental thought. So kind of acknowledging that and just staying with your practice.
So how does your faith part come into that? Because that's the beauty of you and of the work that you do, is that carries through everything that you do. So how important is that to you in the work and how you teach?
The non-judgmental? Oh, it's so important. It has to kind of live in everything that I do, especially as a teacher, and holding that space so people can feel comfortable to let go and to enter a space of not judging themselves and to be kind of fully present enough and to trust me in the environment that I've created or that we've kind of co-created together.
So do you sometimes feel it's like therapeutic? Because I feel like I'd be in a class and be like, okay, talk to me some more.
Yeah, just keep talking.
But it can be, right? And I do think for some folks who do practice yoga, it is very therapeutic for them to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you talk about not being judgmental and being able to do the class, what tips or ideas do you have for folks that are like, I'd like to do yoga, I'd like to have more flexibility, I'd like to be able to do that? Where can we start?
Get on a mat. Go to a class.
You say that.
It's so simple. That's really where it starts. Get on the mat, despite everything that you just said, all those things. I'm not flexible. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know who's going to be there, who's going to be looking at me, or, that doesn't matter. Just like anything else that you show up for, you have to show up. You have to show up, get on your mat, and just do it. And the more that you do it, you'll find it, that you move through easier. And the flexibility comes, right? That comes with the stretching, if you can, depending on your body type. But, we all have our limitations. But you just get in there and do the work. And it is work. It's work on yourself.
What does the drumming do for it?
Great question. So the drumming is healing. So in African traditions, obviously, the drum is the heartbeat, right? Okay. It's the pace, and it's powerful, and the rhythm and the vibrations of the drum are actually very healing for the body.
Does it set a sort of timing for your poses, or
sort of more for the breath?
Okay.
Right? Because everything is connected to the breath. The breath is first before the movement. They go together. So I would say that the drum is a pulse. Just like you have a heartbeat that moves, that you have a breath that's pulsing, that's the drum beat. And it allows you to kind of connect in, to draw inward so that you can really deeply ground down. Because we use a lot of language around connecting with the elements in Afroflow yoga. So it's connecting with the earth and the sky. Just really becoming aware and attuned to nature. And that is our nature. Our being as well. So
it almost helps. It like augments a meditative feeling.
Certainly. Yeah. At different points in the class, and the other points is very energizing. Oh, right, because there are different levels. I like to say the Afroflow, if you experienced Antonia, is very dynamic, right? So it starts here, and we build, and then we ended up coming back down. So it's a journey.
And the drums, I think, also make you want to move a little bit. Like as you're starting to get into it, in the pace of it, it does end up making you move a little different.
Yeah.
So you have to go because it is amazing to watch and it's amazing to do.
Well, I know I know where you're talking about. I know where the park is.
You know where the park is. All you have to do is show up with your mat.
Just show up, no judgment. You have to come.
Yeah.
You'll see. There's all shapes and sizes and people doing it. Yeah, you have a following.
Yes, I know they can't wait because everyone's always like, "Oh my goodness, we've been sitting in all winter. We can't wait."
So what I also we talked about, because I think that what goes hand in hand with that is nutrition, and I know through your webpage and your recipes, and then just looking at you were the perfect. Your health poster here, and I was teasing her last time because she's vegan, and.
That's the only serious vegetarian. I mean, come on. The rest of them.
I didn't understand it. I had to have her explain it. And actually, she's the first person who actually explained it in a way that I got it. So I want you to share with our listeners.
Oh, what did I say?
When we talk about vegan, I think we started with the store. There was a lady.
I think I gave you my whole backstory, right? My entire vegetarian backstory.
I mean, how you got started?
Yes. Yes. Let's see.
Because a lot of times you hear about it, and it's not. I don't know. Maybe there are some people who just say, "Oh, tomorrow I'm going to be vegan," but
there are people doing that. There are people watch these documentaries these days, and or it'll come and then it'll leave.
But you've been faithful. How long? You've been
16 years.
Yeah, and I forget what it was that you haven't had in 16 years that we were like, really?
Dairy.
Was it dairy?
A dairy.
Yeah, we're like, come on.
Ice cream.
It was ice cream or
something
like
that.
Yeah. And she's got kids. And we talked about your husband because I was like, does he like sit in the back room and, like, in the pantry and eat a soup? But you're like, no. So talk about that. What got you to that level of saying that this was a choice that you wanted to make?
Well, I've always just been very conscious of being healthy, and it's sort of I don't know, it's just kind of innate within me. I don't it's kind of difficult
so
to explain.
It's not about not eating the creatures.
It didn't start there for me.
No, okay.
It didn't start there for me. No. For me, it was about finding an optimal diet for health and wellness. And when I was young, I used to get a lot of ear infections. And even in my adolescence, I think I mentioned in college, I used to get all these, like a lot of eruptions in my skin.
That's what it was.
Is that what it was?
It was the woman who told you.
So I used to get boils, like a big red cyst like boils on my face. And at that time, I was eating vegetarian, and that happened. Becoming vegetarian was more just becoming kind of grossed out. It's just simply about meat. At some point in college, I was a sophomore in college, and I just something about it just kind of like, ooh, maybe it was some bad meat I had. It was something that just made me say, oh, just turn me off completely. And I was never really a heavy meat eater. And but dairy was something that I did eat regularly, like the cheese and the Ben and Jerry's pints, every day. Like I used to love the Ben and Jerry's pints. But anyway,
but I know, we're looking at her like, yeah, okay.
I really did. But the thing is, I did. I did. And I would get the boils on my face. And one time I was in New York, in Brooklyn, and I went into a health and wellness store, and there was, I think I always describe her as this like goddess woman in there with her head wrap and like white on, and she's glowing skin, and she's selling potions and like green powders. And this was back in 2004 when people weren't really, it wasn't as hip to have a green juice, Everyone was looking at me like I was crazy with my green juice, actually. Like, what are you drinking, Pauline? But I went in there and she said to me, she's like, oh, are you vegetarian? And I'm like, oh, yes, I am. I was very proud to tell her I was. And she said, no, you're not. Do you eat eggs and do you eat dairy? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, well, then you're not vegetarian, and that's why you have that on your face. I was like, well, like, so bold. I was, I was embarrassed. I was like, dang.
And that's why you look the way you look.
I tried to put some concealer on here. You still saw it. And so I did a lot of research around liver being clogged and how dairy can affect it. And as a person of color, sometimes we don't digest dairy well. And I started to wean myself off of it and notice some huge shifts in my health, my overall health, in terms of my not just my skin, but also my cycles weren't heavy and painful anymore. Like just things that kind of plagued me I didn't get colds, ear infections, all that stuff stopped. And I haven't got one since, actually. And I used to get them several times a year. So I see the benefits of it. So for me, it's about, and again, so now I'm in a season where I'm feeling like I might need something more, not dairy per se, but maybe fish or something, just because I believe that I don't believe in that one diet fits everyone. I think you have to find the one that works for you, and this is the one that works for me. And I'm also very aware that could shift at any time because our bodies are constantly changing.
As we get older.
So you have to be aware of that and just make that shift if necessary.
And I think I read on either your blog or your webpage that you shouldn't eat raw spinach.
So it should be. So that's if you're looking for iron, if you're iron deficient, because I had a period in time where I was. And when you have iron that's raw, it contains a substance that can block iron absorption. But when you cook it, it releases it. So that's why.
Kale or...
You could have it. Raw.
You can have
it's just not going to give you the iron.
It's not going to give you the iron if that's what you're looking for. Okay. And then it also will block iron absorption. So if you're someone who's prone to low iron, anemic, then you want to make sure that you cook it.
Yeah, because I was anemic and I thought I was doing the right thing, but then it's like, why am I felt like I was Popeye. I was like eating spinach all the time. It's like, it wasn't doing anything.
Did you see any results? You
no,
didn't, right?
Not really.
Yeah,
no. I was putting them in smoothies and stuff like that.
Yes, and eating it raw.
For some odd reason, I always had burps, and I'm just like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So do you prefer, is kale better or spinach? I always have to ask the people who eat all this stuff. Like,
they're both great. I like kale. Kale is a little more nutrient dense than spinach. But they're both great. All the greens, and this, as we're getting into the spring season, it's so important to eat lots of greens, like the astringent greens right now. That's what's in season.
So, and I think we talked about this. So all your kids are vegan also, and your husband? Do you cook like a different dinner for them?
No, they eat what I eat. Yeah.
The kids, they don't even get like a nugget or a hamburger?
Nuggets.
No?
No, I make them. I have lentil burgers. I actually just made some lentil walnut burgers, and they love them.
That's because they don't know. When they have the cheeseburger, they're like, what? No, I'm kidding.
We'll see. Like, I always tell my daughter, because she's
older,
now.
so now that she
has
sees other people
she has
eating
that choice, because she goes to a school where there's lunches served at King, and she doesn't make that choice. She says she doesn't want to, but I let her know that I didn't want her to have any issues around food or like restricting her from things. So at this point, you can make a choice that you think is right for you. I think she did have a piece of cake the other day, which probably wasn't vegan, but it's not a big deal.
Did she like it?
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did. Who doesn't like cake, right?
Yeah, no, cake is a good thing. So what else is going on? And another wonderful thing about Pauline is she's also the spokeswoman for Athletica.
Yes.
Did I always say it right?
Athleta. Yeah.
My daughter always corrects me too. Yeah. And what I was saying before is if you look at some of her print work, and not only now that you've met her, you might be watching TV one night and go, wait a minute. How do I know? Because she does commercials.
Yeah.
And then you'll see her in print. And then if you look some of your photography that you'll see, she'll put a picture up on her Facebook page of her like hanging upside down on a New York subway. Or doing a yoga pose in the middle of a crosswalk in New York. It's like why isn't someone running over her? Like what is she doing? So talk a little bit about that, because it's fantastic. And even I think in Athletica, some of the poses that they're just wonderful. Yeah. So what's that been like?
So
it's been this year, right?
That was this year. So I've been an ambassador for Athletica since last year. So it's been a full year that I've been working with them, and it's been great. It's been great. I think in terms of the campaigns that you're talking about, that really came from the upside down in the subway. And I had done work with a photographer, and we created. We wanted to do a shoot around creating stillness and being mindful and just being quiet against the cacophony of like New York City, to just kind of show the contrast. So that's what we were seeking to do.
Yeah, but how did you accomplish that on a subway? Like, was there anyone on that subway?
That particular subway picture, no. That is a car that it's like the last stop or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was it was a working subway.
It was a working subway. There were people coming on. Yeah.
And then the one where you're in the middle of the crosswalk?
Crosswalk. I think I did Grand Central Station.
Yes, you did
Yeah.
So like, did you say, okay, everybody? But I guess to capture what you're talking about, you had to be like
people moving against me. So it's like I'm still, and so that was really what we were going for. Is just.
And I was scared because I was looking at it and I was like, this is New York. There'll be some idiot that goes by like.
No one bothered me. No, that's the thing about New York is no one cares.
Okay.
Nobody cares.
Other places where they'd hit you.
Other places they might say something.
Grand Central
New York,
place.
They might
I've
stare.
seen some vicious people like in New York.
They're definitely staring. They take.
Are people taking pictures of you doing it?
Sometimes we have to stop them.
But it was phenomenal. It was really nice. It was really interesting to see those photos. So what do you have coming up? I know you're going to be doing in Mill River.
So we have Mill River, and then I have a free event coming up at the Center for Natural Health in Norwalk. So we're going to be doing a spring renewal event there on what day is it? I think it's April 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, April 28th at 9 a.m. So the event is really it's going to be a yoga class. The yoga class, and it's in Apothecary. Have you ever been there? It's in Norwalk near the post office.
Okay.
And it's a center that has herbs and remedies and tinctures. It's a really beautiful space. And around the season, as we're entering spring, people have allergies and you have things that come up. And there's a lot of discomfort around the change of the seasons. So we're going to seek to remedy that with this class. And,
awesome.
Yeah.
So that's on April 28th. It's going to be in Norwalk. It's interesting that you mentioned that because what I had attended in January was the Vision Board, which was fantastic with Trifina. That was a wonderful event. And actually, when we were talking about the group that met afterwards and all the wonderful things that people are doing. From our naked yoga to everything else. Yes. There's a lot of, it's very interesting. So will you be doing any more of the vision boards or any of those workshops?
I won't be doing a vision board workshop in the future, but usually in the summer, there's a lot going on in the summer in terms of like free classes.
Right.
Not just here in Stanford, but also in the city, in New York City and some of the parks there. And then I'm doing a yoga retreat in August in Panama. So that'll be fun.
Oh, you're attending it in Panama.
I am hosting it. So I'm hosting an Afroflow yoga and surf retreat in August. So
when you go to those retreats, is it for a certain amount of days?
Yes, so it's 5 days.
Wow, 5 days. Okay. And so the 5 days, tell us what we'd be doing for the whole 5
days. Well, you'll be very well nourished. They have a great
Okay, but is it vegan? Wait a minute.
No, actually.
She said well nourished, but I'm like,
they have fish.
What about?
And I think they might have other things too. Everything is for you. It's your retreat, so you get to kind of.
I get to pick, and you don't judge. You won't judge.
No one. Am I judging Antonia? Come on, of course not. So, but we'll be. It's a beautiful beach. It's a black sand beach in Panama, and we're just solidifying everything now. So I've been working on this week. So really excited about it.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
So what goes into getting your certification for yoga? Because it's a certain amount of hours. And
so the standard is 200 hours. To become a registered yoga teacher through Yoga Alliance.
And where'd you do your training? I mean, you did it a little Avenelli, but did you?
Yes. So I'm currently doing training at Kripalu, 500 for 500 hour, and then my 200 I did at Reflections Yoga, but I did it in Guatemala, an immersion.
Oh wow!
Yeah, for 6 weeks.
Oh wow, 6 weeks. Yes. And what was that like?
Ooh, it's very transformative. I'll just say that.
Yeah. What was the people, the environment?
Yes,
the
definitely
vibe
the environment because it's the place in Guatemala where we were was around the Lake Antigua, which is a lake that is surrounded by volcanoes.
Oh, okay.
And so you're literally on a cliff, and that's all you see are volcanoes, and in the yoga room. And so it's very healing, very very. You get into your stuff, all this stuff we're talking about, all the stuff you're thinking. Yes, you get into those patterns, and you learn so much, and you leave. I left transformed. Truly.
Wow. Awesome, because now I see, it comes out in everything else that you do.
Well, thank you.
And we had talked a little bit about this before, like when you take a yoga class, salsa, whatever it is, it's all about the instructor.
Yeah.
If you can't relate to the person that's teaching, I mean, you just walk away. You're not going to come back. Yeah. And that's why she has this following and so many people that come out to the park and do Afro yoga. And you see, she's little tiny Kayla's in there, and then you see this group, all these people that are sitting there. So it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. So what's your ultimate goal? What do you eventually see as
my ultimate goal? I would love to go and open my own retreat center. That's what I'd love to do. One that really creates space for families to come, because a lot of the yoga retreats that you'll see are just for adults, right? Okay. And so there's a place called Omega up in Rhinebeck, New York, and they have something called Family Week. And Family Week is just for that 1 week. Families can come, and so the kids have their program, the parents have their program, and you're just well fed. And I'd love to create an environment like that for people to come at any time.
That actually sounds amazing.
Unplug, right? Wouldn't you love that?
Yeah, that would be
Wouldn't
fantastic.
Yeah,
I would do as a family
vision.
group.
Yeah.
So tell very quickly how folks can get in touch with you.
You can get in touch with me. My website is PillinAnice.com. That's PillinAnice.com. And my email is Pillin@AfroflowYoga.com. That's AFROFLOWYOGA.
Well, thank you for coming back and talking to me, and I'm so excited. So, April 28th, Mill River Park. You listen to Antonia, and so now you know, on 1490 WGCH. You can also get this information on my website, snyktalkradio.com.
You're listening to the station you grew up with, 1490 WGCH, Greenwich.
Korea suspends nuclear tests. North Korea's leader has decided to suspend nuclear and missile tests effective immediately. Correspondent Will Ripley, who has been reporting from Pyongyang, has details.